Welcome back to SoCap Talks, helping innovators build tomorrow today. Now here's your hosts, Devon and Eric Sutphin.
Well, today on SoCap Talks, we have the distinct pleasure of having Dan Negroni, yet another millennial expert, on to talk about not only the consumer side, but the employee side of millennials in the workforce. And Dan, you've written a book. Tell us a little bit about your background, the book, and what got you here.
Yeah, we wrote a book called Chasing Relevance, 6 Steps to Understand, Engage, and Maximize the Next Generation Leaders. And it's really a book about connecting the generations. And what inspired me to get here was we had a workforce of about 4,000, half of which were millennials. And I had a couple of millennials coming up through the ranks at home. And it just struck me as strange that we really weren't figuring out a way to connect with them, both in the work side, having them connect with our customers. We were in the RV business, and most of our customers were boomers and above. And so teaching them how to build relationships, them being the younger generation, was a really critical part of customer service and all those rankings that you see in an automotive dealership. And then at home, teaching my little ones how to go get it in the workplace and be themselves and articulate value and make it about others, and all the lessons that you spend when you're a parent trying to teach your kids how to be great and create impact for others, kind of all combined to say, let's take all those years of experience in managing and leading people, and let's create a business and stop complaining about them. You said yet another millennial expert. Almost everyone considers themselves a millennial expert, especially if they're a millennial, but we do it differently. We actually solve the challenge of teaching people how to connect with each other and themselves. And so after 12,000 millennials trained, and after a laboratory where we've learned a ton of stuff that's worked, we figured, hey, I think we got something here, and I think it's going to make a difference for people. And it has with all our clients. So it's exciting.
That's awesome. So I know one of the first things that you really expressed when we were having our first dialogue about what makes you different as this expert, you are very, very systematic in your approach. And I'd love to hear what is that system? What is it that you bring to the table that really supports these companies?
Yeah, I love it. Right into the gusto. Dan, what makes you uniquely different, and what is that gift, and how do you share it with the world? And you said it, it's a systematic approach. And we believe that the system is pretty much a 5-step system. One, you have to understand the power of relationships and the fact that it is not about you, whether you like it or not, no matter how old you are. Dale Carnegie said it in How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you can be other focused, if you can be a servant leader, if you can use people's name, which is their favorite word, if you can use the platinum rule, which is treating them the way they want to be treated, you will win. So that's the first part. How do I understand myself, my relationship with myself, so I can articulate the value I can bring to others? And once we understand the power of relationships, we go through an assessment, which is, what are my strengths? Like, what am I really good at? What's my gift to the world and my unique proposition, which is what you just asked me? What are my values, my skills and passions on top of that? And what are they going to do for other people? So what's in it for them in terms of really being able to explain that? What's my brand and how do I communicate that? And then how do I give all that to people? By telling stories that are connection currency that win. And so once you follow that system and understand yourself and are able to articulate it in a way that helps others, and understand that you've unlocked the secret, that it's not about you, you can sell. You can get the date with the guy or the girl. You can get the promotion. You've kind of figured it all out. And we don't teach it in school. And so our system really has evolved to teach people what they're not learning at home and they're not learning in school. And it helps them go, I don't know whether I can say this on this podcast, but I'm going to say, oh, well, I won't say kick ass. Well, I did. It helps them crush it. And when I mean crush it, I mean really figure out how to connect with the people they need to connect with to make a difference in their businesses or their personal lives.
You can say anything you want on this podcast, by the way, as long as it's blunt and serves people. And if it occasionally needs the accentuation of a fuck or a shit, then say it.
I will say this, as a nation and as a workplace, our employees are overwhelmed. They don't have time to learn new things, and we really suck at preparing them to be engaged and to communicate and build relationships with both internal peers and external customers. And so that's a big technical term, sucking, but we're on a mission to change that, to make sure that people don't suck and they really can create impact in a way that they want to create impact. And millennials love that because they're fantastic and they're pushing us harder. They're pushing us harder to be all we can be, and they're right.
Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that, especially, I wanted to captivate with what makes you different. What I'd really love to dive into is like, what got you here? You've had a lot of success in the past, and I'd love for everybody to hear a little more about your story and your journey and where this passion to really create systems and not just go out and talk about it came from.
So, my least favorite topic is to talk about myself. I'd rather talk about the passion of creating the action. I was born a poor kid, which I was, actually. I grew up in the Bronx. I didn't have a lot of mentorship or leadership. And I was always looking for that mentorship and leadership outside myself. People that would take me away or give me an opportunity to kind of show how smart or how hard I would work or what I could do to create an impact, whether it was, going to college, going to law school, working in a law firm, trying to become partner at that law firm, taking over business jobs and running sales teams and all those things. I really was always looking outside for validation and for help in doing that. And what I realized was the best mentor anyone ever has, and it only took me to like 45, which is, about 8 years ago. The best mentor you'll ever have is yourself, because that's the person who guides you to attract to all those people. And what got me here was, I think I figured that out. It only took 45 years, but I figured out it in a way that is clear and concise and bold and full of impact and about other people. Like, I don't do this stuff because it makes Dan look good, although don't get me wrong, I like to look good. I do it because I want to make a difference.
You look great, actually.
Lives. Well, thank you. My hair came out especially good today. But anyway, I'm just kidding. None of that really matters. And actually, there was a point in my life, probably at about 45, where I realized the true secret to success was the less I made it about me and the more I leaned in and demonstrated to people that I had their back, the more I could create impact for them to change their lives and grow their business practices, be a better CEO, get to the next level, lead people better, be a better manager, report better to those people or constituents or stakeholders that had above them, even in the C-suite, whether it's your board of directors, by really kind of fine-tuning this no bullshit, clear and concise methodology of, look, the rules are simple. If we make it about others, what's in it for them, we'll win every time. And so the I, the me, has got to go away, and it's got to be replaced with a we and a they and a them and what we're doing for them. And so those simple principles that Warren Buffett and Jamie Dimon and Howard Schultz from Starbucks and Richard Branson, they espouse and they know, for some reason, even though it's super simple to understand, again, we suck at it, and it's really not easy to deploy. And how do we make it better to deploy for this next generation in a way that I would have wished I had when I was younger, which was someone to help me figure out, the dot inside, because there's so many dots that all these kids are, with ADD and OCD and all the technology. We have so many dots we could follow, but we're not teaching about the dot inside, which will attract to the right dot out there in this OCD or techno fast world. And so my journey was the evolution of not having that and then understanding it and then being able to quantify it in a systematic approach that resonated with people where they said, shit, this is going to work for me. And what he says, I want to learn to do for me. So
I love that concept. I think that the sooner anyone can realize that value of really serving and not having it be about you, that the more it is about others and your contribution and your just human capital that you are developing in your various circles of life, from your family to your work to your community, that that is what success really should be merited on, and financial impact will be a result of it. So we're talking about a paradigm shift in a lot of people's mentality. As you understood this and created a whole program around this, there's often a fallacy or a misunderstanding of millennials believing that they are the ones that have this inherent selfishness, that they are thinking it's all about me, and it's quite the contrary. They are looking for mission-based businesses. They want to be able to serve. They're spending more time and money giving back to nonprofits. How do you work with leadership and millennials included within the workforce to enlighten or illuminate this concept that really millennials are caring about these things, and how do you shed light on that and work with organizations to help both parties, both generations, understand this, and then have a conversation around it and unite around it?
So I love the question. I think it's a great question. And the question is, how do you get people out of the perspective, which is you're this and you're that, right? It goes both ways. Millennials think people my age, boomer age 53 and above are set in their own ways, don't like new ideas, are not interested in really building relationships, just want to tell you what to do. And we think they're entitled and lazy and spoiled and don't care. Both are bullshit. Both are completely not true. Youth and experience have two different components. And youth is youth. And when you're younger and you're a millennial, your world is all about you. Shit, college is a 4-year degree in you, right? Graduate school is 2 more years plus in you. And so are we shocked that they talk about themselves? Yes. If we ask deeper questions and we lean in of anyone, we will see the substance. So not to judge a book by its cover is so critical. And it goes both ways. And so what we do is we push people by asking them tough questions, like, to the boomer, really, why would you think that? Have you ever sat and talked to a millennial? Do you know what the 4 things they want in the workplace, right? Which is mentorship, coaching. They want to learn real skills. And what is your obligation, do you believe, to teach them that as their boss or the owner of the business? And do you follow that? Because if you do that, the statistics are they'll stay longer than a boomer, actually. Do you give them feedback, and are you communicative with them? Are you giving them the ability to contribute and be transparent? And in what way? And is it about them and not about you? Or is it about your customer? And have you spent the time teaching them that? And is it authentic, or is it just a bunch of crap that you're saying that you don't mean? And so we get in there and, we're pretty bold in it. And for those people that want to change, they listen and they open up very quickly and they'll take something away. And it's like any movement, right? Any early adopter. And for those people that don't, they won't. The same is true on the millennial side. When you say, oh, that statement where you're talking to a young lawyer, let's say I was at a law firm last week, which shall remain nameless, but I was at a law firm last week, a very big one. And all the conversation is about, I don't get to sit in depots and I don't get business development opportunities and I'm not getting enough experience and I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. Well, the challenge is you've used I 14 times and you haven't learned how to articulate that you want to do that to make a difference for the firm. So if it sounded like, hey, I really want to become a partner here. I want to invest my time here and I'm willing to learn and I would love for you to teach me. And here are the things that I would love to teach to be able to be better and to grow and to learn. And I'm willing to do it on my own time. It's just about the conversation of articulating your value in a way that is phrased for the other person to hear it. We call it other focused leadership. And so the answer to your question directly is you got to push hard on both sides to push them out of their comfort zone, to have them understand that this isn't about them. And, as human beings, we're focused in the survival mode and we're focused on ourselves. And it's a challenge to push people out of it. But when you do, I will say millennials are actually more apt to be able to shift more quickly, mostly because they don't have the should have, would have, could have in my life and all that disdain for what you haven't created, right? As Henry David Thoreau said, life's about creating yourself, not finding yourself. when we're older, we're all mad that we tried to find ourselves instead of spending the time creating. But with millennials, it's all about they get creation and collaboration. And so it's really just looking at the other's perspective and using words in a way that serves them. How are you going to serve your audience? Same is true with the consumer. And if business is really understood millennials, 75% of the working population in the next 9 years, most of our customers, 660 billion worth of spend, they'd realize if I really got and understood my millennial employees, holy shit, that would be a breakthrough of being able to allow us to understand our millennial customers, and we'd make mo money. And everyone loves mo money. So especially when you can give it back and contribute and have a purpose with it. And so I just think we're not having the right conversations. And we teach people how to have the conversation and feel free to do it in a way that they can respect each other and disagree, but yet agree.
Totally agree. It was really interesting. Yesterday, we were sitting in an event listening to Kevin O'Leary share some data that seemed to be shocking to him regarding the companies he had. And the way he expressed it was, I basically have a business now, thanks to Shark Tank, in every city across America, and the smallest being 5 million and the largest being 500 million. And when they did an assessment, and he had an assessment team come in and really take a look at his companies, who were the best and why were they performing and outperforming even companies inside and outside of his investment portfolio. And what was really interesting was he brought up the fact that today, and I think it has to do with this conversation, the companies that were outperforming the others were led by women. And they had women leadership and or women founders. And do you think, and I would assume that a large part of that is not just because of the women, but maybe the millennials resonate more with their leadership style. What would be your thoughts around why he's seeing that kind of data?
Yeah, it's so interesting. That's a landmine of questions, right, for the Me Too movement and everything like this. But I'll say this. I love working with women. I think they have a different approach to EQ, right, emotional intelligence. I think that's, some of it is genetically inherent in being moms and really wanting to understand and not being, the male, the hunter, the aggro. And I think they're on the whole, better at communication and empathy, right? And empathy really is putting yourself in someone's shoes is the secret to the platinum rule, right? The platinum rule is I treat others the way they want to be treated. If you treat your customer the way you want to be treated, and Starwood has this whole ad campaign, which I don't understand why they still keep on to it, is we treat you the way we want to be treated. Who gives a shit the way I want to be treated? I treat my wife the way she wants to be treated. I tried for 30 of the 35 years to treat her the way I wanted to be treated, which is just like hit me in the face with a 2x4. But she actually likes me to ask permission before I start talking about things that are important or deep or all those things. And so I think women just get that universally, and men are much more about conquering. Now, it doesn't mean women don't have conquering, don't have competitive, are not super sharp, super smart. But I believe women are better at relationship building than we are traditionally. And that is a stereotype, but I think there's some science behind all that stuff. And so it doesn't surprise me one bit. And I will tell you this, the other thing about women is because they're such a small portion of the workforce, they are diverse and they have a diverse perspective. And what science has showed, and I think there's a lot of reports on there out there, is that when old white men ruled the world, and maybe they still continue to, but that's breaking up, diversity was a box we checked. We need a female, we need an Asian, we need a black, right? We need a black female. Okay, we got that. Young people and millennials in general understand that the cool thing about diversity is that diversity of opinion creates better results because it pushes us further. And there's science behind that. And they're much more tolerant about sexual preference, about religion, about everything. They don't give a shit. And that's what's so amazing about them. They don't care about black. They don't see color. They don't care about Asian. They don't care about culture. They care about humans. And women have that diverse perspective, and that diversity, especially since more of the population, I think by a couple percentages, and in some countries even larger, are women. and they're our customers. And a lot of times they're making buying decisions, especially when it comes to household or consumer goods. So, amen to that, Kevin O'Leary. I mean, that's probably the smartest thing I've heard.
And one of the other points you were talking about, a big part of men's drive is conquering, and I agree. I've met so many women that are way more competitive than I am, and I think that's incredible. However, what I think that competitive nature or that conquering nature led to in some of the data that he gave feedback around was men have a tendency to set astronomical goals. And it makes it really hard to create a winning team over and over. Whereas the women, in analyzing the data, set highly achievable goals. And his reference was, if you're on a basketball team and the basketball team feels like it's winning all the time, you stay on that team. And with the team that always has this, championship objective every single time they play, it's really hard to stay positive and to want to be on that team because you always feel like you're letting each other down when you can't achieve those astronomical goals. And so part of his point was maybe a large group of these millennials are driven by being on a winning team, but we view them as not actually caring about that, when in fact they probably do, just don't set these astronomical goals, set something that it feels like we're achieving.
I think, so I love that point, Devon, and I think it's all about modulation. And the interesting thing to me is I just read an article in Inc. about the two things that distinguish amazing CEOs from average CEOs. And the two things were the ability to take risk and the ability to seize opportunities when they come. And if I liken that, just hearing you and experiencing what you're saying to how women would take risk and seize opportunity, it probably would be much more measured, right? So it's much more successful instead of going all the way out as, and then wondering why you didn't make it. It would be much more progressive. And so it makes sense to me that calculating the risk and calculating how you seize the opportunity in each moment and how you build upon that are probably things that are much more metric for women. And I would say millennials tend to be much more giving and sharing, right, and communal, as we see some of them really like socialism from a political standpoint and really wanting to, and enough is enough. I don't have to have all the marbles. I can share some of them. So maybe that's part of the data. But again, I would point to, no matter what it is, it's about understanding the people you work with, what they do, what they're capable of, and being able to implement a leadership strategy around that. And I just think that women are probably, much better at that.
Yeah.
So I love there's multiple components of the four threads that you've talked about: storytelling, leadership development, and mentoring, the like. Can you give, from your experience in engaging with companies and facilitating these workshops and trainings with them, I want two pieces of advice. One for the millennials that are listening to this about the perspective of the C-suite and how can they understand. You're talking about stories and understanding and asking powerful questions. If you had one piece of advice from your experience in talking with C-suite and management, what would that be to millennials? And then on the contrary, for those that are in management, what would you shed light on or give them something to chew on around millennials in that perspective? If you had just one, piece from either side of that coin that you could share, what would that be?
To the boomers and to the more seniors, I'll take that first. Be open. Be open to new ideas and collaboration. Do not be threatened, and welcome information and a progression to what will be. Because clearly what was relevant 30 years ago is not relevant today. With the exception of the advice I would give to millennials, which is double down on understanding how to build relationships. I'll share the most meaningful thing that's happened to me this weekend was time I spent with a friend of mine who's a senior wealth advisor, who's built a huge business, $billion business. The sales manager in some capacity said to him, hey, the way to succeed is to go meet rich people. And the wealth advisor, in this particular instance, has a very different philosophy. And the philosophy is, I treat people the way they want to be treated. I see what they're interested in. I bring value. I focus on kind of the three buckets that Jonathan Fields focuses on in his book, How to Live a Good Life: vitality, connection, and contribution. And so I approach everything I do not by go nestling up to who I think the rich people are, but understanding what everyone needs from me. And in my particular book, a friend of mine also said, who's another wealth advisor, my theory is to help one person a day. One person a day I'm going to provide value to. And so the senior manager of this, the other person I was talking about, basically said, yeah, I don't think that's going to work, the helping and the relationship building and all providing value. It's more about just going and meeting people. I'm telling millennials they have it right. It's about knowing people and helping people and understanding the power of relationships. That is the threshold that makes the biggest and best salespeople and the biggest and best contributors and impact players in the world. And so make sure that you have the skills if you're a millennial to be able to articulate your story, to get the story out of others, to ask questions, and to double down on providing value to other people and making it about that. And then whatever you do in your career, you will be on your path to learning and growing and getting all the things you want to do, and you're winning. And to the old guys and gals out there that really just see it as just this rubric of, we make a certain number of calls, we do the same old bullshit all the time, we just meet rich people, or we only meet people that are going to be able to do something for us, or we calculate every single move, it's a bunch of crap. And over the lifetime and over the way the world's working, it will not continue to sustain itself. Will you get lucky at times? And are there people that are super artful and being manipulative? Yeah. But the more we get technical, the more we can have this talk over Skype, the more we're listening to everything, and, we'll have chips in our bodies to know where we are, like the Mission Impossible movie and all that other stuff. The more we get like that, the more important it is to understand that the only difference we will make for each other is that one that's about being human beings. And so study that, double down on that, double down on being able to do that.
That is a great perspective, awesome philosophy. You do public speaking, you are all over the world, you're working with companies one-on-one. How can people find you? If they want more information, if they want to work with you, what does that look like? How can they get in touch?
We're super grateful to be able to speak at keynotes around the world and work with all clients, Fortune 100 to mom and pop shops. And they can find us at dannegroni.com. Which is my website. We have a company, LaunchBox, that we work through, but Dan.Negroni, I think, on Instagram, Dan Negroni on Facebook, Dan Negroni on LinkedIn, and dannegroni.com for keynoting. And if you need workshops and you need all the training, we'll get you to the right people. We have a great team of 10 or 15 coaches, and we just adore and love, and as you can tell, are super passionate about not only millennials, but the work that we can do with everyone to bridge the gap and create a difference and impact. So thank you. And thank you.
So awesome.
Thank you. We really appreciate having you on and look forward to continuing the conversation.